Before you go, Douglas, you wrote a great piece for the New York Post about Zohran Mamdani, and since that piece was published last week, more polling has emerged showing that he is the clear frontrunner to be the next mayor of New York City. In this poll, you can see he's leading on 41%, ahead of Cuomo on 26% and Eric Adams on 16%. You lived in New York for several years. Are New Yorkers really this suicidally stupid?
It's really worrying because you can see, as polls like that show, how Mamdani could easily sneak through and win. You know, about a fifth of New Yorkers actually engage in mayoral race voting. So there are millions of people that simply have been checked out. And if they remain checked out, then it's very likely that Mamdani would be able to win. As I said in the piece, there's all sorts of reasons to not look forward to that, not least the fact that he can't do basic math or accounting and can't read a budget sheet. And that just got exposed the other day as well, because, of course, he's promising tens of millions of dollars to things that turn out not to actually be in the gift of the city to give. But there's a lot of reasons. He is he's just one of those politicians who'd come from absolutely nowhere. He tried to make it as a rapper for a bit, and then that didn't work out. So he became a political activist, which we all know is very important when you're running America's biggest city. And now we also find out that his own resume has been a fraud, and that when he applied for university at Columbia, where his daddy is a professor, so you would have thought he'd have been a shoo-in, he applied to Columbia, didn't get in. But he also said that he was African American, which is interesting because he only moved to America, became a citizen, I think, 8 years ago or so. He isn't an African American by any means. But isn't it interesting, once again, just as it's the middle-aged German fraus who are the ones who are viciously attacking young ethnic migrants in Germany and so on, isn't it interesting the way these things can be turned around? I bet you that if a Republican had been found to have claimed falsely that they were an African American only a few years ago, not decades and decades ago, but only a few years ago, I think that person would have no future in electoral politics. But it's Mamdani and vibes and so on. So it's all forgiven. The same way that Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, you know, she holds herself out as a native Indian all her life and gets all the advantages that got her, and then says, oh, whoops, no, I turn out not to have any Native American blood at all, but so what? Again, total double standards. This is the stuff that enrages people. Mamdani was basically doing college application blackface only a few years ago, and that will be accepted as everything else about him will be accepted. All of the bigotries that he's expressed throughout his short public life so far, all of the absolute pie-in-the-sky promises, unfunded promises he's telling young New Yorkers he can give them. All of this will be forgiven because he's running as a Democrat, progressive, of course, and of course actually a socialist Democrat, a democratic socialist. And you know, it's so pathetic that people would fall for this. I really hope that the 4 million or so adults in New York who've not engaged in this race start to engage in it, because there is no reason why New York should have to have a democratic socialist running it, whose own CV is lamentable and whose governance of the city would put yet another stress test on a city that badly needs to be brought back and not to chase successful people out.
Well, if he does win, it's going to be a godsend for real estate agents in Florida and Texas and Tennessee, because the New Yorkers would be fleeing to those red states. Douglas Murray, thank you so much for your time tonight.
A great pleasure as always, Rita. Thank you.